And I guess we are live. Hello, everybody.
Hello, happy Friday.
It's summer, and we have our shades of red t-shirts. um, yeah, welcome to in session number. Is that number 15?
15 already.
15 is wow, that's a
Wow,
lot.
time
Good
flies.
stuff. And we thought we'll start with maybe some announcements, so to speak. Firstly, Albers and the Interactive Immersive HQ
Championship.
are planning the next championship. Yeah, number 2. So in case you have missed number 1, the second one is happening in August, 21st and 22nd. And I'm not sure, but the Become Competitor button is still active. So I wonder if this is actually still something you can apply
Yeah,
for.
maybe Albers hasn't turned it off by mistake. So, because the deadline was yesterday, as far as I know.
Okay. Huh.
But maybe you can sort of sneak it in. Or
Deadline is Sunday.
oh, deadline is now Sunday. Okay, deadline is Sunday.
Voice from the off.
Still from the campsite next to us.
Yeah. Great. Excellent. And the second thing that we wanted to introduce, whoops, that was the same link. What is this
Yeah.
one here?
Music Hackspace meetup tomorrow. These have been going on for, I think this will be the third or fourth one, and highly recommend tuning in because they're a lot of fun. There's 3 excellent presenters. There is Louisa Lessel, Torrin Blankensmith, and Peter Whidden, and Joseph Louis Pels. And it's about shaders, I believe, like real-time cloth simulation, shader conversion, interactive 3D shaders, shader park, so all things shader. And then the breakout rooms are really fun, so you can actually we can talk to one another in breakout rooms, and it's a nice way to spend part of your Saturday.
Short side note, Louise and Torin, as well as Peter, were on previous in sessions as well. So
That's right.
If you feel like preparing for this meetup, you can go to our YouTube channel and find those in sessions and watch them before attending Sundays or Saturdays. Oh, that's Saturday. Saturday's meetup.
Saturday, yes.
All right.
All right.
Oh, we have one more. We do have a new section at the end of in session, so stay till then.
Don't go away.
Don't go away. That's how you say it.
Yeah.
And with that, probably we'll go to today's guest. And welcome, Noel.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone.
Yeah.
We have Noel Apita, aka on Instagram, you know him as Scarlet Motif, and he is beaming in from Kampala, Uganda. And so we're really happy that you're joining us late at night. And
Not that late.
it's not that late yet. No. It'll be
5
late by
hours
the
ahead.
time we finish. But
Right. Yes.
yeah. So we had a really good talk yesterday, but maybe we could go over some of that now. Like you just recently graduated from electrical engineering, Noel?
Yeah, well, as recently as January of 2020.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And in the meantime, though, you said that electrical engineering, well, it's a very versatile thing to study, because then what you are actually doing is a lot of video art, or you started basically working in TouchDesigner to create videos. And did that also start last year after your graduation, or already before?
I mean, I was exposed to TouchDesigner a bit earlier. I have a few friends. I have a friend who is a professional stage designer, and he mentioned it once in passing. He mentioned it among other things, Cinema 4D TouchDesigner. And when I looked at everything, I found, oh, this was the most interesting program that I found. Also, kind of what I would think of as a development environment for visuals. It's pretty cool. I used to do a lot of work in After Effects, but I found TouchDesigner kind of gave me a new way to look at visual art and how to approach creating it in a more fun way.
Yeah. Can I quote you on something you said yesterday? You said TouchDesigner is a very forgiving program once you get over the huge hump.
Yeah.
And it's easier to fail forward in TouchDesigner, which I think is quite a good point. That you.
Yeah, I found that when I say forgiving, once you get to the hump, is essentially trying to wrap your head around what TouchDesigner is and what you can do with it. It took me a while, as I mentioned yesterday. I would always arrive. It took me like years to actually open it and just stay there for more than like 5 minutes, because I'd open it and then like get scared and run back and come back after 3 months and stuff like that. But once I actually started working in it, it was once you get over like just learning the UI and stuff like that, it's kind of like a sandbox. Like, do whatever you want. You're not going to break anything. If you want to create sounds, if you want to create visuals, if you want to, you can do all that stuff in there. And I think it's really forgiving because of the non-destructive workflow. And even more so than other programs like that, because I think for me, it has allowed me to really branch off on tangents. I'll be trying to do one thing, then branch off on a tangent and find something really cool. And I'm never really penalized, with like a long render time or having. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So maybe one of the qualities of TouchDesigner people is that we're all impatient.
I think we're all very patient.
We're very patient.
I think we're hyper patient.
Okay. I just wanted to get everyone going.
Hey, wait a second.
So Noel, like, have you thought of ways to combine your engineering degree and TouchDesigner? Because I'm sure, like, like sensors and all the stuff. Like, I mean, there's got to be a way to, lots of ways to integrate.
I think interestingly, especially by the time I left engineering school, I was a little disillusioned with it, and I kind of didn't think that I would be doing much in the way of working with either hardware or technology, like in any serious sense. But what's interesting is entering into TouchDesigner from an artistic direction and like trying to. Well, I just came here trying to create visuals and play around with them and do that kind of stuff. But it's weird. The deeper I went, the closer to technology I returned. It's kind of like moving back in a path back towards, So whether it's things like having to learn some Python to code, thinking about sensors, calibrating sensor input data, thinking about web APIs and that kind of stuff, like. I kind of consider TouchDesigner as my gateway drug to kind of coming back, to that, and also kind of looking at it from a perspective that made more sense to me. So yes, I have thought about it. I'm really interested in robotics. I think like the work Whiteboard does. Mm-hmm. I find that interesting. I don't know if it's robotics or something else, but I find that
kinetic.
It moves.
Yeah. It moves.
Yeah. So I mean. I like physical things, like things that have like a physical presence. But yeah, to answer the question, yes, I'm still figuring out what kind of person, what kind of TouchDesigner developer and like practitioner I want to be. So that's all on the table. Yeah. There's no stress there. But one thing that you were saying yesterday, which was really interesting, was that you sort of, in your work, you treat Ableton as your sensor, as your input device. Do you remember that? Well, yeah, I remember that. To explain that, in my particular context, like where I exist in Uganda, well, I think even in maybe, I won't speak for the whole of like Africa or something like that, but it does seem like a lot of the technologies that are immediately available, say like sensor technologies like LiDAR scanners, or things like Kinect Azure, or even like the Kinect, the consumer version of the Kinect, all that kind of stuff, which is kind of the bread and butter of most TouchDesigner users that I see online. It's kind of few and far between in this market. So, but what I noticed about all of them is that once your information comes out of whether it comes out of a 3D scanner, whether it comes out of a motion sensor, a pressure sensor, temperature sensor, once it enters TouchDesigner, it's just data. So at that point in time, I kind of thought to myself, well, TouchDesigner has this cool integration, which I have built with Ableton, called TD Ableton. And the same way that data comes into Touch from like a Kinect, that's the same way that it enters in from Ableton. So I decided to treat Ableton as more of like, essentially a sensor, but what's coming into it is basically musical notes. And basically, I'm using it to be the thing that senses my interactions, which then I use to control stuff within TouchDesigner.
And this is so great because that's exactly how I tried to build TD Ableton to be used in that way.
Process engineering.
Yeah. I find it pretty useful for that. I think that well, because I've learned a lot about a designer on my own. If you're just making music with Ableton, but since I have this background and a huge interest in music and just composition and playing instruments and that kind of stuff, it was really easy to think about. Well, it was kind of a natural progression. It wasn't easy, but kind of a natural progression. Entering interactive design from that direction. So yeah, essentially I'm using Ableton as my gateway into the world.
Do you play any instruments, musical instruments?
Oh, I think we lost Noel.
I feel like it's because
I thought we lost me.
Well.
Okay, well, let's talk about Noel's work
lost our guest.
without him. He'll be back. He'll be back.
Well, I mean, one of the cool things about Noel's work that I've looked at, because we're going to get into his files, is you can tell he's an engineer, because even though he's brand new to Touch, he's using really great fundamentals for the way he's setting things up. So he's almost like nailed the way that the workflow, but he's doing it slightly wrong way, with like maybe some small tweaks. So this will be a good talk for people who are thinking about getting into Touch that are.
So, guys, sorry about that.
Yeah.
You're back. 1 second. I just got to get you back on video.
Okay.
But...
We have Uganda back online. Yay. we're just admiring your work without you, Noel. We're talking about your work behind your back.
Well, that's really. I mean, I guess I hope you're saying good things.
Very good things.
So Noel, did you say if you played any instruments or?
Yeah, so I was just answering that. I essentially play a lot of guitar. I'm not a professional or anything. Awesome. I play guitar. Although I don't know if you'd consider like a MIDI instrument, because like a lot of the music I make really has no guitar in it. So essentially I create using something akin to an Ableton Touch. Yeah.
So can you briefly describe how, like, the track that we're going to be using today from Ableton, like what was your core process? Was there live playing in there? Were you playing keyboards?
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially I use a grid controller. I use a grid controller, which is, it's like a different way of looking at a keyboard. It's kind of like
what's it called?
It's a Native Instruments machine jam.
Okay.
It's kind of like an Ableton push, really. So essentially, you have these pads, and it kind of looks it's kind of as if you were looking at a guitar from the top, because it doesn't really look like it. So that's usually what I play on. So the track is kind of I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of, it has this kind of space operatic theme vibe to it.
Kind of tangerine dreamy kind of, yeah. It's cool.
Yeah. So essentially, one thing that I'm kind of obsessed with when I'm creating music is like this sense of like scale and space and making someone feel like they're in the middle of something really grand and like beyond that. So there's a lot of like choral tracks and like well, the drum. It kind of reminds me of like stuff you might hear in a very like critical part of like a Star Trek movie or something like that. So.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing track. Yeah, it's totally dope. And so, yeah, you also, which was nice for us, is you made it. I think it's cool that you were able to make it with plugins that it was easy for me to get. Like, I have the whole live session with all of the systems in it because it's like you made it with the basic Ableton sample library, and then all the stuff that you could download offline. So you managed to pack. You're one of the first guys I've ever seen pack up your entire Ableton live session and give it to me. So that's very well done.
Yeah, I wanted to make it as easy as possible for you guys to just impart your knowledge. So,
yeah, I was totally impressed. So very cool.
Well, since we're talking about it, do you want to go get straight into it, or?
Can we look at his visuals first, maybe?
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, how much time left do we in this? Yeah, I don't know, if we're rushing.
3 minutes. Let's talk for 3 minutes.
Take a look at his visual stuff.
Yeah. So what are we looking at here? No, this is that show, right? That you participated in?
Yeah, so this is the first time that any of my visuals were actually like shown out in the wild, amongst the people.
Beautiful.
It's an exhibition that me and a friend of mine, she's called Nicole. So she basically looked at my art one time on Instagram and she was like, "Oh, this is cool. It can definitely exist in a gallery or something like that." And I was like, "Really?" Because I didn't think of it like that. So I was like, yeah, definitely we can do it. We can like find a wall in some huge space and like project some stuff on it, and that's essentially how that came about. It was about 40 days into the dailies I've been doing, so yeah, we put up about 40. Well, not actually all the 40 pieces, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And then this other one is from the one currently on is from the Creative Code Festival in November.
From what? From what?
The Creative Code Festival.
Oh, the Creative Code Festival.
Yeah. It was put together by Never Knows Better and Lightbox.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right.
This is a great piece. I love this.
Yeah. So, like, what inspired? Like, what's your inspiration with your aesthetic? I mean, anything in particular, or this is just you?
The more I have continued to work, I didn't think I had an aesthetic before, but the more I work, the more I think about most of what I have to do. Most of what I create usually has a lot of like grain, distortion, glows, the kind of stuff you'd find in like a cyberpunk film or like a synthwave track or something like that. Even the music is kind of synthwavy and all that. So I'm really interested in like glitch aesthetics, in imperfect visuals, essentially. Not really Swiss design, but more, something that kind of gives you an unexpected direction when you look at it. It's not really highly polished. It's more like distressed and all that.
Has a bit of a retro-futuristic feel to it,
Yeah.
definitely.
Exactly. I just think of myself in like a Tron movie or like in Blade Runner. Like if I was in the Blade Runner universe, I'd definitely be getting a lot of gigs. So.
Yeah.
You're definitely a sci-fi guy, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. That's great. Well, really look forward to seeing more of your work in the future. It's been really fun following you on Instagram and watching your development. As you say, you kind of started all with tops, and then now you're sort of branching out.
Yeah, now I'm trying to like build out like well, I guess more complex systems, things that can handle doing a lot more things than just creating visuals.
Exactly. All right. Oh, this is beautiful too. Where are we now?
That's really cool.
These are concert visuals. This was from a musical concert that I did in Kampala for a musician called More Roots. Essentially, Yeah, it's part of what you saw before with like well the people on stage essentially. Yeah, so that's what that was. Just trying to help her tell kind of like a cinematic story of to kind of back up her music, kind of like a live music video. I like to think of visuals in terms of stories rather than just having something put on screen. I want to take people on a journey. So that's essentially what that was. It's kind of a sequence of that. You know, the lady approaching a planet and then falling through the atmosphere and breaking apart. So that's what that was.
Cool.
I just had a question and then I got distracted by the chat here. That always happens. It doesn't.
There's a clear reference here to 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh yeah,
that's
definitely. I think actually one of them is called Stargate. The pieces that are showing up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh yeah, look at that.
Just a huge fan of what those guys managed to achieve with that movie, and it's from the 60s. You know, always trying to just chase. I think it's called Douglas Trumbull. Just chase what he achieved with that. You know, just the experience. I'm a really big fan.
Maybe for the next summit, Noel, you can come, and then the entryway to the summit, you can do that in the hallways.
that would be awesome. It would be really cool. I would love to do it.
Okay.
Now we know what kind of space to get.
Yeah, exactly. Long tunnel.
Yeah.
Can we do an Africa summit or?
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah,
So-
sure. You can bring the summit over here. It would be awesome.
I was actually just wondering, that was my question, if there was anyone from Africa, because I know that you publicized it on your Instagram and stuff, and I'm just wondering if we have anyone watching from Africa right now, and in general, sort of, I mean, what is the digital sort of digital arts media scene like in Kampala?
I think it's like really rich, and like there's just a lot of depth of voices and experiences. A lot of the people here, like every single kind of like facet of a visual industry you might think of anywhere else in the world, you'll find here. They're really great game designers. They're awesome filmmakers. There are amazing musicians who tell really great stories with the visual art attached to their music. There are quite a few awesome writers I know really great stage designers. Like it's definitely, I think one way to describe us here is there's a lot of figuring out how to make big dreams work in kind of like maybe in kind of like a smallish context.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So like people,
That's
I
exciting.
think people here are really people are really good at like DIYing their way to like greatness. Yes.
Yeah.
Fun.
I did post this article that was in the blog, The Creative East, to the chat. And I feel like this already also gives a nice look into the art scene. I'm not sure how local this is, but there's a lot of painting, animation, video artists that are mentioned in there. It's a really great overview there too.
Well, we're very glad to have you in the community and using TouchDesigner, and hopefully one day we'll have the Africa Summit
Yeah, definitely.
at your place.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be looking forward to that. Glad to be here.
Okay, shall we dive into see what Jarrett's come up with?
Sure. Jared, should we connect? I'll see if I can connect to you. You should get a message.
And just one quick thing for anyone who's joining us late is that we're gonna premiere a new segment of InSession at the after the main event. So hang around.
Hang around, exactly. And with that, we're handing it over to Jared, Ivan, and Noel yourself, and discussing all the questions that you had. All right.
Okay. So I think, we were just talking about, while you were gone there for a moment, how the stuff you gave us is really, really nicely dialed in. So we can tell you're an engineer because you really think through your structure, your Ableton file is really well organized, and so is the touch file. So so you really got it in many ways right as is. And so what Ivan and I are going to do is just show you how to kind of follow the rules that maybe aren't so well communicated. Like I think you were talking about how it's a little bit hard to find out the right ways of engineering systems. There's no really great articles written on that yet. So, but there is a really clear workflow, at least in my mind, that we can show you, as well as a way to. The other question that you were asking is, how do we build scalable systems? So you were saying, like, one thing to make a song, it's another thing to make a whole show. So we're going to touch on all of that stuff as well. So before we begin, I think I can show you. This is just the baked. You also gave me a live system, but I'm just, for simplicity, I just have the baked stems version of it. But let's see if we can play this and check out your music a little bit here. You see there's a scene change. These scene changes here, start, chorus, verse, chorus. These cues are changing the cues each. Okay, so let's see what you got going on in here. So essentially, we've got X number of tracks. Some of them have these TDA level senders, which are sending the envelope from the track, from the stem, and then there's the main TD master, which is connecting to TouchDesigner, which we'll show. Noel, is there anything else in here other than the levelers and the main master that you want to mention, or you're passing along?
No, most of what I'm passing is essentially just levels. Essentially, because I'm trying to think of it as something I can build upon. Of course, there are all those other TD Ableton tools, like you can send MIDI, you can send OSC, you can do all that kind of stuff. But essentially, I'm just treating this as something which is the beginning stages of developing the system. So it's just levels.
Cool. Okay, perfect. And that's why I think this is great too, because it's also quite straight. There's not, it's not overly ambitious. I think you're really kind of cornered exactly the main problems to try to tackle first. So Okay, so let's get into your file. So first of all, when I look here, I just kind of, when I first browsed through your file, I went into here, which is or into the package. Well, when I was looking around, I figured this out eventually. And that is that you added this stuff to, which is your stem levels. You added them inside the package here. And you shouldn't add nodes to a package, because what if I wanted to, like, you'll see this is version number 1.28. What if you want to upgrade it to the next version? So then you're going to have to do some operations. It's nice not to have to worry about that. So the first thing I would do in your file is clear this out. And that's what that's going to do, is it's going to break your connections to it over here inside your file. You have references back to / td Ableton / synth, right? So once we move that guy, we're going to break it. But this is one of the most important lessons right away, which is that you want to build your components. And in this case, your components are your scenes, right? So the thing, really what you're doing here is you're building scenes for your show, right? And so ideally, these components are sort of self-sufficient objects that you can, and you asked that in your original question, which is how do I make my system scalable? And so what I'm going to show you is a workflow that that will make it easier for you to manage growing your show. In this case, it's just a song, but ideally, you know, this workflow should support you building, let's say, a whole show with multiple songs. So the first thing we would do to support a system is to look at the root level of the whole project, right? We want to start thinking about the root of the project. By default, when you open up Touch, as you know, there's a /project1. And if you right click on it, open parameters, and look on the common page, there's a project shortcut, our parent shortcut, called project. This isn't, I wouldn't recommend, well, generally I change this if I'm going to start a project or start building a system, because that's what we're talking about, is you building essentially your show architecture. And so I would immediately start by saying, okay, what am I building? And we're building, in this case, we're starting the root of our large project. So we might call this something like show, or, you know, you might even call it the name of your system. If it was called Araya or something like that, then you might call it that. But I would just, you know, often I call my show system show. And that's usually the root of the whole hierarchy of the whole show. And you'll see that once this name is very important, because we're going to always come back to the parent, top level of our project. And in fact, you might be aware of this in the Ableton structure. There's well, I won't get into that, but there's an object live model that has a very distinct structure of tracks and the root level of the system, which I can't remember what it's called, but live, I think, is the root, and so on. So we've named our root, the root of our entire project show. So this will make it easier for us to navigate to using simple Python expressions. So let's move this stuff out and put it in a good location. So let's take this out. I'm going to cut it, Control X, which is going to effectively break all your stuff. And I'm going to put it in a central location. I'm just going to make a base component, because that's what I often do, is make base, and call this something like let's call it stems, and then paste in. Okay, so now we've got our main stems in from Ableton, and I'm going to just create another out operator here, and out one is good. So in general, I make components that are called some name and they have an out. And if they're important systems like this, like the stem system, then they would just exist in the root of the project. And you might have a bunch of them. Like you might have another one called notes, right? And this would fetch in the notes. You might have another one called controllers. This would fetch in the controllers or whatever. And so you can always count on these, on the location of these. And then it makes it very easy. You're developing a language that you can use to communicate with your system. And so you'll see how we fix this. Your nodes is quite easy. We can fix this these broken connections because we know that the path back to this is parent.show as the parent show, and then .op stems. So, and then it's out one, or you also have references to these guys, kick, bass, synth, whirl, and whirl one. So let's see how this manifests itself. Go into start, fix this expression. So it used to be going back to the package, but now we can go to parent.show op. We know it's stems, oops, quotes, stems slash synth. That will work like that. And paste. Okay, so the cool thing with this is kind of like a hardened piece of machinery now, just by doing that. No matter where I go in the project, copy, if I go here, it still works, right? So you can move this around, like, and this is always going to be getting that very specific thing, which is your synth level, right? So anywhere in the hierarchy you go below your show location, you can use this piece of gear. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about hardening operations so that they always work within your show structure. Okay, so let's do that again for this guy. And so this was getting the kick. So again, I can just copy this expression, copy, and paste it here, and call this kick. And that's fixed. Okay, so we'd go through here and see what else is broken. And I think that's it. So it's the only thing we've broken so far. One other thing, let's digress for a second and talk about resolution. This is also very important. And I see you already took a crack at this, which is really smart. So you're trying to centralize your resolution. You actually started to think about it here as well, because you're like, okay, well, what if I want different aspect ratios? And I think that's really wise decision. The right place for that, in my opinion, is one of two places. You might have a project resolution, right? So again, if you want to have an easy to access resolution, you right click on project one, customize component, and then we want to make a parameter called resolution. It'll have a width and a height parameter, and click add, and maybe make its default resolution 1920 by 1080. Okay, so what happened there is it added a custom parameter to our show root called resolution. And maybe we want to have a nice name for our custom, or for our page on there, which I often call it, I'll have a page name that matches my parent name. Here, this is capital. And by the way, your parent names always should have a capital letter. You remember that, like my parents have names. My parents' names are Mary and David. They both have capital letters for their names. Capital M, capital D. So show should have a capital name. It's a common name. So and that will manifest itself in really easy to use code down the road. As well, the custom parameter is uppercase resolution. So you'll get into this pattern of knowing where your stuff is. Your stuff is at the top. Your stuff is located on the show component, on the show parent, and it's going to be a parameter. In this case, resolution. You know how it's spelled. It's capital, first letter, everything else is lowercase. So now we can go and fix your resolution references here. So for example, I don't know where we can do it. We can do it. I can not break your system too bad just by overriding it here. So I can just say parent.show.par.resolution. I think it's 1. I don't know what it is actually. Resolution width is W. Yeah. Okay. And paste that there. Okay. So hopefully that will get passed along. It doesn't seem to get passed along here. Or are you scaling it here? Is that what you, yo, that's clever. Okay. Awesome. So you have a decent system for that. The thing I didn't like about your system is that you made the component have the resolution, which, I mean, it's not a terrible idea, but there's no reason for there to be a component here, in my opinion. This is generating visuals, so the panel is just kind of in the way. The panel is down. The panel for the user interface that's going to go out to the monitor is probably after. It's probably even outside of the system. It's a UI that surrounds, or it's another level in this system. It's like the show user interface, but you don't need panels here. These can just be base components. Okay, so, but the good news is we don't need to, I guess we don't need to worry about that too much. Do we? Well, okay, one thing we do need to worry about, well, yeah, sorry. So what I want to do is I want to show you where to put these scenes. There's a scene change system inside Touch now called, how much time do I have left? Just checking my time. Thank you, Marcus. Let me know. Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
So I'm good. Okay. So you'll notice the scene change system it's going to do exactly what you need it to do here, which is it's going to, instead of using an index, but you're switching. Right now, what you have is you're grabbing the queue past channel from show, which is from the Ableton song component, right? Is that right? Where is it? Queue pulls. Or no, did you make your own app? Is that what you did? Yeah, you did. Very clever.
So it's essentially it's looking at oh no, that's basically just to start it up again, like when I want to start up. So actually the chop execute is what's doing that, what you're looking for.
Oh right, okay, right. Yeah, so you see when the last queue point passed, and then yeah, okay. So we have a cleaner way of doing that. So ultimately we're going to replace all of this with Ivan's piece. So Ivan's going to give you a new Python, really simple, dead simple way to change a scene in the scene changer component. And if you want to know about the scene changer component, it's got, if you just click on help and you can read about it, but the most important thing that
I think that's the
No,
wrong.
you won't get it with
button.
those icons. You got to use your help parameter.
Yeah.
Probably in about, maybe.
About, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so you'll see that the scene changer comes with a extension command, like a method called scene change. And you would just, so all we need to do is feed it the name of the scene we want to play. And then the fade time is the amount of time to fade in to the new scene. So you're perfectly set up here already. So you're kind of, you saw the same thing that I saw with how to work with Ableton. So we just need to move these guys into Scene Changer. But the components that Scene Changer uses are, well, they're scene components, which you can generate a template just by clicking on Generate Scene Template. And where did it go? Okay, one thing that you should be aware of is, for whatever reason, you're way off here in right-hand space. You'll see the Unity location of Touch is here. And so it generated a scene template down there. Things might get confusing sometimes in Touch if you're way over here. So let's bring you back to the center. This confused me, by the way, the other night, because I was like, where is that scene component going? Oops. Okay, cool. So when I clicked that button, it generated this template. Okay, so how does the scenes component work? It says that it needs a scenes comp. So let's make a component. I'll just make a base component, and I'll call it scenes. Okay, and then we can use the scenes template, the scene template, to make our scenes. So I'll just going to start by making one scene, which is going to be the start scene. As well, I'll comment on your use of uppercase. The case that we use in Touch always is camel case like this. It's lowercase, first word, no spaces, no underscores, and then uppercase. I would recommend you to start using that. Use it everywhere, unless there's some different reason why, which there's a few, but you don't need to know those for a long time. I would just always start using this case. Okay, so let's duplicate your scenes in here. So, or let's just start with the start scene, start. So I'm going to copy this, put it in here, paste. And this will be called start. Okay. You'll see the basic scene is just a colored, rectangle with text saying the name of the scene. So that's a good place to start. Let's actually just do start and chorus and see how this works. So start and chorus. And just for the users online, or the folks watching online, the reason why he's using these names very smartly is because he has these, what are these called? Cue points? I think they're called cue points. Cue points in Ableton. So when you hit stop here, and then nothing will go into Touch. Well, actually, Touch will get the TD Ableton will get a stop callback, and then when you hit play, it'll immediately send the start cue point chain like past, and then as this timeline goes forward, and then as it passes this cue, you're going to get an English like that exact text chorus is going to be sent to TD Ableton, saying that it changed, and then so on. So that's how he's set up his show to run, which is actually pretty bang on perfect for the way that I would suggest to do it. So we're just making this thing compliant with the scene changer. So let's see how this goes right now. So if I take the scenes component, which has two scenes in it, and then click and then load the scenes component there and hit reset. Oh, don't hit reset. That resets that. And hit fire scene. Okay, now we're in. So you'll see we have a mini show system already. We're on chorus. So if I go to scene 0 and fire scene, it goes to start. So actually the fire scene concept is kind of similar to the way Ableton works. So it's quite easy to it's kind of modeled after the single column of the Ableton spreadsheet, which is, oops. Oh, there's Ableton. Okay, sorry. I just started Ableton. That's not a good thing. This is kind of the way that the scene system works. It's just one column of the Ableton stuff. So, all right. Let's move your components in. So I'm going to copy this, go into scenes, go into start. And so the scene component has a bunch of stuff on it, like the initialize start, these parameters, it has resolution, and it also has a parent shortcut called scene. So you can see it follows the same sort of workflow as I'm showing you here. So you don't want to modify this, you want to put stuff inside of it. So just paste your component inside. You can have whatever you want in here. You'll see that our resolution is broken, but that's okay because we remember what the path is. It's parent.show.par resolution W. And so if you follow this recipe, you're going to be able to remember where your stuff is, which is half the battle. Okay, that's good. And let's see what else is broken in here. So notice how our synth select was we were able to move this without breaking it because we used this expression system that we're using. So that's nice. We didn't break too much. We're still alive here. It's good. Not too much work. All we did was copy paste this guy in, change this expression, and we're good to go. I would actually say that this is slight error because the scenes, well, not necessarily. Oh yeah, it does. So we shouldn't be making a reference to the resolution parent show here because we're crossing the barrier of the scene component. So your reference to the resolution should be here, right? So if we can go to parameters, copy the resolution parameter from the show, paste it onto the scene, paste reference. Notice it just gives us those nice expressions. And then the resolution for the scene should be put here, paste.
Yep.
And this is why I don't like, as well, this is why I don't like the component container, because I can't just paste reference, which is annoying to me. If this was just a custom parameter, we would get the resolution with height, and then we would just paste once. So there's another argument against this. There's no use for the component in here necessarily. Paste reference. But it's okay. I don't want to break it too much. So let's go.
Jared, just FYI, we're about 30 minutes into your section.
Okay, cool. So you can see what I'm up to here. I'm going to repeat that process for each one of these guys, and you're going to end up with something that looks like this. Whoops. Yeah, that's still good. Okay, it's going to look like this. Your output from your scene is going to go here, and that's going to get taken care of by the scene change system. Don't worry about it. And then you're going to make a bunch of your, you're going to copy in your start, then chorus, which is here. Chorus is going to go in there. So you would just copy this into, whoops, into scenes. Then you'd start chorus there, connect that, fix your resolution, fix your reference to your audio levels, and so that will turn into a system that looks like that. Let's see if we can just do this pre-InSession. Yes. And what's nifty about your system is you load Ableton when it loads. Now the problem right now is it's going to load it again, which is sort of a problem because it doesn't check to see if it's already running. But you do load the Ableton session with Touch, which is pretty cool. So that's why it's asking me to load that file. And all that work. And what you end up with is a system that looks like this, which is that you have your stems isolated. You've got your TD package, which is the package, the TD Ableton package that you can easily delete and replace with a new package. You've got your stems component, which is connected up to the parent, which has the show parent structure. You've got an externalized song component, which you already had, which is good, which Ivan's going to show you how to connect the song to the scenes component and with the scene changer. And we can just delete that. And we've got our scenes component. So the scenes component holds all of our scenes. So we've got start, chorus, verse, chorus 2, labyrinth. And I added an off scene. This is a scene to go to when, like a scene for black, when that you go to when you're not playing, when you're at, for example, when you hit stop on the playhead, you go to the off scene. And yeah, so that's basically where we're heading. The other thing I noticed you use, which I'm going to suggest you don't do, is your components. You were using the off shortcut, right? Do you remember that, Noel?
Yes.
Don't use the op shortcut because that's kind of reserved for big systems that come in like the TD Ableton package. The reason why it uses an op shortcut, TDA, is because it's like a single, only one of them can exist in a file. So it's kind of like you installing software on your system. Let's pretend you can, like Ableton, you can only have one version of Ableton on your system. So that gets the op shortcut named TDA. And what that enables the package to do is it can give you things like the Ableton song, so component. So and that's why it'll work back to it using these op shortcuts. So if you're working with TD Ableton, you should have the package here, and you should go inside. If you want to work with a parameter, copy the component and paste it on the outside. Do not ever put anything on the inside because you're going to lose it. And even worse, if it's inside and you lose it and it's got references out to your scenes, you're going to break all your scenes. So that's the right way to think about that stuff. I think, sorry, it might seem a little bit confusing. It's all going to come together right now when Ivan shows you how to essentially change scenes from Ableton using a really simple script. So I'm going to hand it over to Ivan now.
Or are there any questions about what Jarrett did there?
No.
I don't think so. I think I definitely understand. I think what Jared has helped me look at is basically how to build like a more robust hard naming system, which I really understand. And he's kind of introduced this scene changer component, which I've never seen before. But yeah. But it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that the scene changer system does is, oh yeah, okay, sorry, Ivan, one more thing. So the main thing that the scene changer system does is, instead of, you have all your scenes going into a switch top, which that means you can't crossfade from scene 1 to scene 5, for example. And so the scene changer system allows you to load any scene to any scene and crossfade over time. And so as well, you'll notice the wires aren't connected. So one thing that you have to worry about in Touch, let's say if we wanted to composite all of these guys together. If you composite all of them together, you're going to be rendering them all. This is going to cause everything to cook. And so if we look inside of here, you don't want, obviously, all of the scenes in your show cooking when you're only playing one scene, right?
Yeah.
So the way that cooking works inside Touch is it's recursive. So it starts by at the level of whether or not it's being used downstream, and then it will cook up the hierarchy to figure out whether or not stuff needs to process. So with your old system, everything was forced to cook, and I don't know if I can show this so easily the way that it was cooking, but just take it for granted. Everything was processing, and therefore your frame rate was pretty low. And if you follow this recipe, or if you use the scene changer, your frame rate is going to go way up because the only scenes that are being selected are the current scene and the next scene.
Yeah.
And then as it crossfades, it will automatically relinquish one scene and hand it off and shut it down. And so that's why we have the initialize and start pulses here. This all gets run by the scene. Actually, maybe I can show you that. If I next scene, fire scene. Okay, so now we're in chorus 1. Here, I'm going to open the parameter box here. And you'll see these. So I'm going to go to start scene. So that's scene number 1. Fire. Watch the play button here, and I'll go fire scene. Notice the play toggle turns on. Okay. So if I go now to scene 3, the play button won't turn off until it's faded out. So it's actually fading out now, and when it's fully faded out, the play button turns off. So there's a lot of like nonsense you have to go through to make that happen. So the scene changer manages that, and it also when it cues the scene up, it will run initialize and it will run start pulse. So already, if you work on the inside of this, so for example, let's say you wanted to just completely turn this, or let's just say you wanted just to go, I don't know, invert it. You can just immediately use the play button here, copy. You can use this for all kinds of stuff. Like for example, let's say you want it to be black when it's off, which isn't necessarily going to matter in this case, but then you can just use this expression here, parent.scene part the play. You can use that all over the place to kind of say, is the scene running or not? And so okay, one last thing. The thing I do to make sure when the scene is not being played is I'll turn off all the node viewers, and everything should stop cooking. And you can tell if it's cooking by the wire look. You see this wire look here? This pumping, right? The pumping. You want to see all of this pumping shut down. So if you don't, you click lock, and you'll see it shuts down here. But we've still got cooking here. You'll see this is still cooking. The I discovered in your file, I just didn't know this before, RGB delay is always cooking, which is really bad. If we take it out of the mix, and I see you use RGB delay all the time. So all of your stuff is always cooking because of RGB delay, which is our fault. We would like to apologize to you. We will figure out a way to make that go away. But now this looks correct. So your scene is not being played, nothing's cooking, and it's also going to come alive when it's demanded, when it's pulled from. It's going to come alive naturally. You'll see some people bypass their nodes like this. When you unbypass it, it'll cause a huge cook. because it's
Yeah.
unloading it and loading it. But if you just load it naturally, it'll just come alive really, really cleanly. So that's what the scene changer does for you if you work inside of the scene components. Is it also if you follow it, your file is going to be optimized.
Right.
Okay, so let's hand it off to Ivan and show you how to play scenes from Ableton.
All right, we'll just disconnect here and get to Ivan.
Lots of options.
All right, can you see me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I can't see you guys anymore, so I'm just gonna that everything is working. So yeah, I'm starting basically pretty similar to the file that Jarrett was just showing you. And I know, Noel, you said that you don't use Python too much, or you're just learning. So I'm just going to show you some really simple stuff. I think it's really great to do all your graphics using tops and nodes. That's definitely the best way. But I find that Python is really useful when connecting to different systems. A lot of times, just a little Python will simplify your work a lot. So this is the command that the scene changer uses to change a scene, so you can tell it which scene you want to use, and you can tell it how long you want to fade. You can do the scenes by name, or you can do the scenes by by number or by name here. And so just to start things off, I made a table that translates from your Ableton cue point names into your scene names, because they're similar, but they weren't quite the same.
Yep.
So that's totally fine. You just needed a way to translate, so I made a table there. And so what I want to do is just, when you change the cue point in the Ableton song, here, I'll just keep it playing so that we can see that the cue points are changing. So as you cross the cue points, you want it to react. Now you could just use these channels, of course, but there's a bunch of callbacks built in already. And after writing, the most important Python, I would say, in TouchDesigner is being able to write expressions in your parameters. But the second most important part is being able to use callbacks, because a lot of systems have callbacks.
So what's a callback, Ivan?
Yeah.
So a callback is it's a function that is called when an event happens, right? So so this is a Python function that is going to run automatically, and they start with the word on. So usually, most of them. So on scene triggered means that you've triggered a scene. On scene started means that you started a scene. So that's the difference in quantization, as you know. In Ableton, you trigger it, and then at the right moment, it actually starts.
So Noel, don't be afraid of all this code, because there's almost no code here. There's really nothing there. It's just a function that happens when that event in Ableton that you know very well happens. So it's really dead simple.
Right, and so what we're going to do to simulate your system is the on cue point passed. A cue point has been passed, so that's exactly when we want to change scenes.
You're going to be fascinated when you read these. You're going to get so excited when you read the function names now, because you're going to be like, oh, I can do, whenever that happens, I get to put whatever code I want into that little function, and boom, it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So in this case, I've just put debug info. So info is the information that's passed into you when a cue point is passed. So I'm just going to show you a trick. Whenever you're doing Python stuff, I think it's a really good idea. Save yourself a lot of pain to split your screen and give yourself a text port here. Yep. So that you just have it on screen all the time. So cue point passed should be passing. Let's see. Up. debug info. Why are we not passing here? There we go. So this is what happens when so the debug info command just gives you a nice breakdown of what information is passed into your function. So you're getting the callback name on cue point passed. You get which cue point is passed, and then the cue point is actually another dictionary of information. A cue point has name, time, index. We passed another cue point, and then you get the number. Anyways, you get a bunch of information in there. So a great way to start when you want to use a callback is just to debug the info, and you can see what you're starting with. So now the question is, what do we actually want to do in this? So we want to dereference this table here, starting with our cue point name, and get our scene name out of it and play that with Jarrett's system. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the name of the cue point. And so here, actually, I'm going to move this so we can see both of these things. Whoops. So the name, to get the name out of it from the info, we want to get the cue point. And so whenever you're referencing a dictionary index, you just can use the string there. Sometimes it's not a string. In this case, it's a string. So, and once we get the cue point, we want to get the name out of it. So info cue point name. Now we have the name. If you want to test that, you can always do a debug name. Here, and then let's see it come up. Where
it's a long far in.
Yeah. I'll just jump over here. Whoops. Hey, come on.
You click below that in the little area. Yeah. There you go.
Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, there we have the name there. So as you write your code, a lot of times it's good to just debug as you write your code, and you can make sure you got your information right.
So why debug instead of print?
Debug formats it nicely. You remember when I debugged the info and it puts it all like nicely tabbed out? So debug is a special thing that we created for TouchDesigner, that it formats it nicely, and it will also tell you what DAT you're running in and what function. It gives you information about the line number and the location of the code, which is really, really helpful, because in TouchDesigner you might have Python in 100 places. And so it's nice to know in your debug statement that it's from this particular DAT. Yeah, so that's really helpful. So now we want to get the info out of this table here. So we're just going to say, so to get the scene, we're going to take a look at that table, which is called cues. I guess you can't see that, but yeah, so it's cues there. And then for tables, we just use a two-dimensional array kind of notation, which is, so first we want to know what row it's in. And the row is going to be the name that we got, right? Because in TouchDesigner, you can name the rows either by index, so you could say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or by whatever the text is in the first, in that column, right? In the first column. So we're going to dereference it by name, and then what we want to know from it is the scene name. And, well, I won't debug. You can trust me that is in fact correct. And then we're gonna use this scene changer code here. So scene change, and then it just wants to know the scene name, and then we can say scene. there. So we've just got the name out of the callback. We figured out the scene. We've called the scene changers, callback code. And then where are we? A little bit past again. So now when we cross that scene, whoops. Boom, it triggers it. So yeah, and we can just test another one. Go back here.
So Noel, it's scalable now because you can have 150 scenes, right? And only 2 of them are going to be playing at any one time. And it's super easy to go from one song to the next because it's just a bunch of cue names, right? So you can have as many songs as you want, or you can have like a show made in one Ableton session as well, which we've done as well. But yeah, there's the timeline concept, which is like running cues, but then there's also the, like in the Richie Houghton show, the Plastic Man show, the whole show was run in the arrange mode, which so we had a different we had like maybe well, each row in Ableton is called a scene, right? So but really in our show we had one scene per maybe 8 or 9 or 8 to 12 different scenes in Ableton. And so you might have a sub kind of, so you might have 12 rows for your first song, another 12 rows for your next song. And so each of those cues might be cueing stuff on the inside of each scene. So you might have sub cues and then whole cues, right? So so that's another way of working. So Ivan will show you how to
Yes.
There's an alternative to the queuing method. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I just put some names into the scenes for sanity, and I did a similar thing down here.
You know, you can rename the numbers on the right side of that. Well, yeah.
So I renamed those, and I did the same basic thing. I took the Ableton scene name, and then translate it to your graphics names, your scenes in the scene changer, and then it's a really similar process. You can find the callback for it. So on scene started, we can just say so on scene started. In this case, the name is going to be info scene name. And we don't have to do a debug. It says it right here in the comments, like what's going to be in there. So we can see that that's name equals scene name. And then we do this same kind of thing that we did down here, except for the different table. Ableton scenes, and then name, and then scene name again. And then kind of do this exact command again. So now when you change your scenes, yeah. So that's a way I think that a lot of artists use this way to run a show, and they have different scenes that they go through. And again, well, these callbacks were made for you, but I just wanted to show you a couple more examples of other ways you can control things if you want to. Those callbacks are very specific to TD Ableton, but as you know, you can get the MIDI out with Ableton also, and then you can just use a chop exec. So you can look at any chop to do the same kind of callback techniques, and just write your code in here. And so in this one, I just used the notes to really stupidly flash back and forth when the notes went on and off. I'm sure you could do something much better than that, but just to show you, like, it doesn't have to be a callback that's built for you, because this is just a chop exec that you drop, and then you point it to the chop you want to look at here, set null 1, and then I'm just looking at last note, and I'm changing it when it goes off to on and when it goes on to off. I've seen other artists use this way to control their set using just MIDI notes on a particular track. So you can make a track that's just your kind of controller track for your graphics. And then you can use Ableton MIDI to watch your MIDI notes and trigger using the notes. And that gives you, what that gives you is a way to kind of put the notes in your timeline or in your tracks, working more in Ableton than in TouchDesigner. So you can kind of lay it out in Ableton as part of your song where the different changes happen, you know, and obviously, I mean, as you know, you can do more than just change scenes. You can put these things inside of your networks to do more specific graphic stuff. And then just as another quick example, this is a DAT exec. So same thing as when the chop changes. This one here, I'll move this a little bit. Sorry, my mouse is acting weird. It's a little slow. On a track, you can watch exactly which clip is playing. You can see here in this DAT, you can see that the name of the clip is changing, and then you can also see when it's off. So this is another way you could use to trigger, like if you were, you know, turning on tracks in different scenes, but you wanted each one to control a graphic that gets mixed together. You could use this technique to activate graphics depending on which clip is playing in a given track. You know, so this one I picked your piano track, and I just made another clip here. So these are kind of like the main ways people use to control their graphics in TD Ableton, or, you know, connecting the touch graphics to the Ableton set.
Yeah, so you should think about like language for yourself in your Ableton live session and your touch session. Think of an English-driven language for your scenes. You know you have scenes in touch because you're going to use the scene changer. You might have more than one scene changer if you want to be fancy. You might have the global scene changer and one scene changer within each scene, right? That would be totally legal, because if you were going to get really fancy, right? And then you would think about, like, you've got this, the master, like the high level scene names are on the right side, on the far right side in the master channel. And then, like Ivan's saying, the names of the clips, which come from, those are called your clip slots. Or where do those names come from? Yeah, the clip slots. Those names can be driving the insides of the song, right? So, and so, yeah, so there's all kinds of, that might depend on the name, the English names that you're using on the clips might be something like song-clap like name or something. So, and then you can analyze that in Python, and that the more you do of like string parsing between because string parsing is so fast between Ableton and Touch, the simpler your system's going to get, because you're not going to need to have a bunch, like some big chop network or DAT network doing a bunch of analysis. You just have really, really clean English names driving your show forward. And then you just got really simple composite networks, which you're great at building already. So those simple networks can just be lightly driven by your smarter language that you're driving with, using these techniques. Yeah,
like this, like what you had before, it was driven by index, which could get really confusing in a large song. And so, like, when you have a table like this, so you know what you're activating. And obviously, like, if you're careful about your naming, you wouldn't even need this table.
Yeah.
Because you could just use the name directly as long as you named everything just right.
And I've seen people like do fancy stuff like they have English words like strobe or like or go black or whatever, flash or go red, like those can be part of the name as well. So you can start parsing that out and driving like post effects with English names embedded into your clip structure, you know, that kind of thing. So the idea there also is you're giving yourself power back in the Ableton session when you're being creative in Ableton, and you can start to more easily move around effects. A lot of people have special clip tracks for just effects names, just video clip names. So dummy tracks, they're just for the English event coming in through Touch. So,
Yeah,
because you're like that's the role of
here.
Yeah,
like,
the role of the name is determined by the track that it comes in on. So you're gonna know that it says, you know, play this clip, but the movie bank might be that column, right, in Ableton.
Yeah.
So you can start to really program your show from Ableton.
Yeah, and again, this is just a regular chop. So even though you're triggering that, you know, I'm triggering it with notes right here. You know, you could easily replace that with, you know, with a sensor of some kind. So again, like you said, it's just data once it gets in, and then once you start building these systems and have the simple understand how to trigger your scenes, then you could use anything to trigger them. So cool. Any questions about what I was explaining there?
First of all, I don't think I've ever seen that Ableton song callback. It's kind of, is it part of the, is it hidden within the? Okay, I see. So
It's
docked.
Yeah, it's docked. So
yes, it is hidden.
All right.
and this is very common in TouchDesigner. We dock the callbacks. So often when you'll see a DAT attached, it's going to be callbacks.
So put down something that does that automatically, just as an example.
I don't know. What do we have that does that automatically?
Pipe in
I don't
chop,
think-
maybe?
Timer chop.
Timer chop.
I don't think they're docked. They always, oh, they're docked. Look at that.
So
Wow.
here's a timer. And so the timer has callbacks for all the things that it
So
does.
as well, so the timer chop, look at its parameters. It says initialize and start, right? So
Right.
click initialize. Ivan, click initialize. Now click start.
Oh,
What's
hey,
it doing?
that's
Just click start on it, please. Go back and click start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start.
So see, it started at that timer, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can put a timer chop inside of a scene component, and you can bind the initialize and start. And when that scene plays, the timer chop will start. So it can be just like Ableton in that sense, that when the scene starts, it starts a timer and starts counting.
Okay.
So I didn't put it inside the scene component because I don't know, you don't necessarily want that, right? But that's why it's set up exactly the same way as the timer chop, because you can go in there and put in a timer chop in the way that you need it. It might not be a timer chop, it might be something, an audio play chop, or, well, probably not audio, but movie player, whatever it is. So
Does a scene have an initialize or? Sorry.
yeah, it has initialize and a start. Yeah, every scene has. So when the initialize happens, I think when it, I know when initialize, it happens when it starts, or no, when it exits and on startup. So it'll initialize when on startup, and it'll also initialize when it ends. So it'll queue back up and be ready to play again.
All right. I see.
Yeah, so
might be worthwhile mentioning sorry, Ivan, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, bottom line here is that Jarrett organized this into scenes. And so you can see that it starts to get very boxed up. Like your things are in specific places, you know, in your original network, it can start to get pretty crowded with when all the different things are there. So yeah, it gets nicely boxed up, and then you can use the Python to kind of, often you're talking between components using these Python callbacks.
Yeah.
That's the main recipe for stuff. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Marcus.
My comment would be because Jared was mentioning the color, the RGB delay, and if you're using it a lot, I myself use this quite a bit as well. The issue with it is that it always needs the like a bunch of frames to be ready to come in with a ready delay. Now, if you use it in all of your scenes or in a lot of your scenes, the possibility would be to put it after the transition system and have it as a global effect for your for everything. Yeah.
But we should figure out how to make that not cook when it's not being used.
Well, we need an initialize on it, basically, or you run it for X frames before you say, "Oh, I'm ready."
Yeah,
like you put a timer chop on it.
It's tricky. It would be the similar, like particle systems and things like that.
Feedbacks, all of
but
those.
Yeah, we should.
Are difficult.
Ideally, everything comes out of the palette.
Yeah.
Not cooking when not in demand, unless it's a generator or an outputter. But anyway.
So that's what I had to show, just the basics of using the callbacks to
Thank you.
that stuff.
All right. I put us back onto the normal, no, not the normal, the interview screen. And I guess,
I'm just checking the chat. I don't think we have any questions in the chat. So if Noel doesn't have any questions, maybe we could, is it time to move into our new exciting segment?
Into our new exciting segment?
Noel, do you have any comments or questions or?
No, I think that I've gotten exactly what I needed. You basically pointing me in the direction of things I can use to build upon. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel, for awesome questions and really amazing system you built. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really, really great work. Definitely.
Yeah, I think you can see how close it was to our stuff.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just to preempt it, it's we're calling this new segment Developers Corner, and if you happen to live in Canada, you might know that there's such a thing as Coach's Corner, and they are they are absolutely not related.
Oh, I didn't get that connection.
Okay, good.
Anyway.
I'm wearing my Don Cherry shirt right now, so.
Oh no, I was. Oh, okay, I should have.
Oh, so we. Oh, that was the reference. Damn it. All right. Well.
Anyway.
This is like some Canadian humor, or what's going on?
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
I think so.
Sorry.
Oh.
Well, welcome in the Developers Corner with Rob McConnell.
Welcome, Rob.
Oh.
Hi. All right.
We beamed you
What?
in.
Glad to be here. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe just because you just said that. So you just said that a moment ago. The video clip we just watched was something from Hackers, and you said that all the UI was not the UI, all the stage stuff was all built.
The interpretation of the inside the main apparently was actually a physical set and stuff they built because the CG at the time was didn't look impressive enough.
Not up to the task yet, yeah.
Hackers.
Nicely impressive. Well, so
otherwise everything in that movie was totally accurate.
I'll put you up full screen because what we're going to watch actually is very interesting also on a quality level. Oh, Jared is very loud.
Jared, what are you eating?
Let me mute Jared. So what are we looking at here?
All right, so we're going to dive in today. We're kind of going to do a preview of some work in progress. So this is code built just a couple hours ago on features for fun, some great stuff with caveats that is subject to change. And
Rob, sorry to interrupt, but you're kind of cutting in and out a little bit, or is it just me, Marcus?
No, I think if you maybe turn off your
There's other noises
video,
here in the background.
or if you turn off your video, maybe then the screen share comes through and your voice as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
your
okay.
your sound is messy.
Okay, sorry. Everything always works in the previews and never live.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully that's a little better now. So yeah, we're going to try to do a review of the new text component, if everything's working okay.
No.
So
No.
we'll see. Nope, still can't hear me.
Still, yeah, your sound is still buggy.
Could you turn off your camera, maybe?
Yeah, turn off your camera.
Maybe we get a couple more kilobytes.
All right, camera's down.
Camera's down.
that's any
Okay,
better.
and now it says,
Host is doing something else right now. What does that mean?
oh, that means that, and I get a message that your network seems to be slow. Please stand by.
Oh.
It's also Friday here, so people are starting to watch movies.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This is disappointing.
Okay, let's give it a shot now. Or
I can see you guys. Your video fine.
you sound a lot better.
I'm going to try to connect to you again, Rob.
Sure, I'll stop sharing Parsec and share again. See if we can do this.
There are settings in Parsec to set your megabytes per second or kilobytes per second.
Connect. Let's see.
Oh, sorry. Stop.
All right. That's good. That looks great. Yes.
Are we getting better now?
Maybe don't
Yeah.
play forward if
Okay.
it's possible.
I think it looks great.
All right.
Let's forge ahead.
Okay, well, let's jump on this while things are working.
Yep.
So the new text component is basically the next gen of the existing field component. So most of you guys are probably familiar with it for displaying text in panels and for allowing user entry. But the field component internally is based on the text. So everything is the text top. So everything is being rendered to a texture. So the point of the new field component is everything is now directly rendered to the screen. No more behind the scenes textures. And everything is in display independent units, which we are currently calling panel units. So these are a more abstract unit. It is what you define the width and height in currently. And then they get rendered out to a different number of pixels depending on what your scaling is or what the resolution of your screen is. So if I'm on a high DPI monitor, like I am right now, they'll render crisper. So one of the benefits is that I can go all the way in and my text is still nice and sharp.
Super smooth. Yeah, this is...
So rather than just scaling up a texture, we are get exactly the number of pixels you have on screen. So the text comp though is still a full interactive field editor, so I can add more text here, and it all gets set to the value here. We have all of your font controls that you had in the old field comp. We can scale things to fit, and we can pick our font size, set our color, pick our font.
To be clear, those are actually from text top. It's sort of the combination of the text top
exactly,
inside the field comp. Yeah, so it's kind of both. That is
correct. All of that was technically just a wrapper. Yeah. So I know the text comp works in a slightly different way. Everything is based on the value here, so that can be entered directly or be bound to it or be an expression, and then it is formatted for the screen based on the type I've set. So right now I've got a float, so I'm rendering this float out as I can set the number of decimal places. So we can change it here. We can set it to something like scientific notation or treat it as a percent. So when you treat that number as a percent, it's basically times 100. And so that does all that behind the scenes. And we also have a couple of example ones we're putting here, like currencies. We'll put symbols and that, and you can do things like comma separated values. So these are kind of some of the formatting ideas that we're testing out now. Now, because it kind of works for anybody who's used a spreadsheet, which is probably everybody. When you go to edit, it goes back to the internal value, so that you are typing, numbers, and then when you leave the edit, it goes back to the formatted version. So that you get so that way, even if you're only displaying, if I decide no decimal places, that data is still in that field.
That's the value.
So
yeah, you always have the.
Yeah, that value is still there. So moving on to a different example. So using integer formatting. So I've set my type to be an integer, and I'm driving it through the speed chop here and using a timecode setting. So basically, it takes that number, which is treated as a number of frames based on my frame rate here, and converts it into a timecode format. So we've got a couple different ones there set as examples for whether you want hours, minutes, or days, or whatever. So that's another way to use it. And we also currently support custom formatting. So in that format list, there was a custom option. At the moment, we're using FMT syntax, which is based on C++ 20. That's just kind of coming out. But it basically lets you put in, so I decided to add a different currency. So I put in a pound symbol. And these little symbols here let me tie it to the actual data value and also tie it to my precision value. So that 2 there is actually tied to this value here. So you can utilize that in your own expressions. We're also looking at fancier options for having like Python callbacks so that you can parse your own value into a string and then also put your string back into a value so that basically you should be able to cover anything any way you want to use it. Another simple example, the old field comp had a password mode where you could type, I want my password to be password. That it'll obscure the characters and replace them as you want. Like the old one, it is in the parameters and stuff, so this is mostly for display purposes. But this is a feature that was in the field comp if you've used it. And so those are some examples of single line entry, but it also works as a full multi-line text editor. So there's a paragraph off our webpage I stole. So you can type another paragraph here. And you have full editing for multi-line text support, copy, paste, undo, all that kind of stuff, including your standard. Oh, controlling the wrong one. Alignments, those kind of things. You can set your padding, so your distance from the inside to outside, and if I make it all the way up so it can scroll using your standard panel index, you can scrolling on. So the reason I did that to scroll. So another exciting feature, as I said, we've got a full text editor in here. You can also turn on one of the formatting styles is based on the language syntax.
And now we're losing you again, but hopefully we catch back up.
Maybe Rob can type what he's saying.
I think this is exciting no matter what.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. You don't even
now
need
we
to
see
hear what
it.
he's saying.
A picture is worth a
See
million.
what's going on.
Yeah.
There it is.
There you go.
That's
cool.
So this is live typing, so I can set variables and it detects what I'm typing. So
should point out that the 5 has a
equals
different color.
test.
It does.
Okay.
It's yellow. Yeah.
Add
That's yellow.
What's yellow?
comments here.
The 5.
It's a little hard to. I stole the color numbering from Visual Studio Dark framework, but we might end up making those configurable, or it's kind of all proof of concept at the moment. So that's it next to the existing Python highlighting. So one of the other things, how we actually do that syntax handling, is the new text system supports formatting directives that you can embed into the text. So first, you can set these curly brace commands here saying start, setting it to yellow, and then a close bracket to reset it to whatever state it was at before, and a double directive here to both change the size and the color around that word and reset it. And so then when I go out of editing mode, you see what the actual colors are. There's a whole bunch of different formatting things defined. So we can do things like subscript. So we can do like that. Oops, I forgot the hashtag. And so now it's a subscript. And do superscript. So there's a whole ton, a lot more font editing and text. Good.
Yeah.
That are coming to allow you to do a lot more things just in the middle of a block. Yeah. And yeah, and just my last example is a.
Oh no.
Rob,
was
someone
the
in your
last one?
household is downloading
This
something
is a whole read.
serious.
I bet you my kids are streaming.
Your kids are streaming.
I told them I'd be online, but yeah. So yeah, if you can get, that's a read-only field, so you can still select and copy it, but you can't edit, password fields, and you can combine them with the existing panel components, like the older buttons that are there right now. So yeah, that's my quick summary. Hope some of it came through.
It did.
Most of it, yeah, that's great. So it works as a panel, therefore also works with panel execute dots. And
yeah,
yeah,
it should blend into the workflow most people are familiar with.
It's right in.
So you get all of your existing controls, the setting the backgrounds and borders and compositing.
It's exciting. I really love the zooming on it when you go close and you don't have pixelated text.
Yes, yeah, it's
that's massive.
We're gonna be seeing a
much
lot
nicer
of
when coming to the
a lot more text coming to our world. Yes.
Wow.
Maybe like 1995 all over again.
Yeah, frame that one. NF text. Oops.
Good.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, very good.
First episode of Developers Corner.
First episode of Developers Corner. Let's have a look at our video again. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. I really want to watch this now. Look at all this.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That's cool. What is this?
Hackers.
You haven't seen it? Hackers.
Oh, this is Hackers. Oh, right.
Yeah, in the 90s.
Wow.
Should we bring everybody back on, Marcus?
Sure, yeah. With a caveat, the Developers Corner is a separate, so Rob is not in the picture.
My video wasn't working anyway.
But we can hear him. We can hear him.
But we can hear you. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, check out the time. We are ahead of schedule. Usually we're scrambling at this point, but
That's good.
And we accomplished so much. And I want to thank everyone for wearing the right color today.
Coach's Corner. I have to say that Ivan, you're muted, but your shirt probably mostly matches whatever Coach's Corner was wearing.
Yeah, he's the most Don Cherry looking guy here for sure. Yeah.
And we will never say that word again.
I don't know who you're talking about, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, don't look it up.
He's a Canadian icon,
like
Ivan.
him.
You'd like him, actually. I think you guys would get along.
Oh, maybe. Oh my God. Anyway, let's get off that topic.
Yes.
So what's everyone up to this weekend?
I'm going to Lake Erie. Lake Erie. Yay.
Yay.
Going camping next week, but not on the weekend.
Okay. We can forget about that topic too. But
I'm gonna daydream about going to Noel's neighborhood and seeing the art there. All this stuff looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I really want to see what the. Where is it that you live, Noel?
I live in Kampala.
Kampala. Yeah, I am so excited to see the electronic art scene in Kampala.
Yeah, Kampala, Ginger. There's a lot of cool art.
Yeah. Yeah, and the music too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the painting. Like, have a look at that
Plan that
website.
African Summit.
The Creative East. There's like the visual art scene is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so different than North American or even European, actually. It's missing a lot.
So,
Yeah, it definitely has its own flavor.
So, Noel,
No, yeah.
you're you have some new food for thought.
Definitely. This is going to take me like a few light years from where I am right now.
Okay, we'll talk about it in 2 days.
I might be a bit too short a period to travel.
Well, you already have the portal set up, it looks like, so
Yeah,
you'll be ready to
yeah.
go. Yeah.
true.
Even
Yeah.
So,
So
guys,
how can people find your art, Noel? I don't know. Did we talk about that already?
I think the website's right there.
yeah, Scarlet Motif on.
So,
Go ahead, Noel. You tell it.
okay, so my website is really new. It's just telling people how to find me and stuff. But right now, most of my art is on Instagram. I create art every day. Well, I've been able to do it every day for about a year now. So yeah, there's always something new up there. And if something else comes up, I guess I'll send an email.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, let us know what you're doing exactly.
Yeah.
And you also have a couple of videos on Vimeo. I just wanted to mention that too.
Yeah, but they're mostly just maybe expanded versions of the one on Instagram. Definitely
okay.
the most up-to-date versions of my work are on Instagram right now.
On Instagram.
It's kind of where I started out as just using it as an album, but I'm kind of trying to maybe curate maybe some collections and put them up on my website and even on Vimeo. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
Hmm. Yeah, you've got a lot of followers. 3,323. Not bad.
Oh yeah, that's pretty interesting because like I started last July, and I had like 200 followers by then. So this is interesting.
Yeah.
I try not to let it get to my head that 3,000 people care what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. I've met very interesting people in the TouchDesigner community through it.
Yeah.
I learned. There are a lot of people who really inspire me, and when I need advice, I mean, I talk to Polly, to Simon Alexander Adams a lot. He helps me out quite a bit.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I love you guys, the community you guys have built.
We can't hear you very well right now, but question for you. Yeah, so when you go looking for help, where do you go? TouchDesigner help. I mean,
Well,
do you ever go to the? Do you ever post on the forum, say, or?
so I've started posting on the forum a bit. I must say I'm not entirely sure how to use it, but it's less daunting than like going to Stack Overflow. So that's it looks nicer than Stack Overflow. So that's another good thing.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
pretty good.
Yay.
Yeah, so most of the time, if I need help, one thing I really like about this community is, I mean, we were talking about it before, but it doesn't seem like there are any real like rock stars. So for example, I've been using a lot of Ray TK, which was built by Tect. And whenever I have a problem with like something, I can text Tect on like Instagram and be like, this is not working. What's this? How do I do? And like answers come really fast. No one is high and mighty. So like I think I use like the socials a bit more than the forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, because on the forum it's kind of hard to target a person with a question.
Yeah, and on the socials, it appears that either no one ever sleeps, or there's always someone awake somewhere. So yeah, I mean, exactly. TouchDesigner help group, for example, is so fast.
Yeah.
But you have some direct connects.
Yeah, I think it's just a mix of both.
Yeah.
Sometimes you put it on the forum, you get like a community-based cooperative help. Then sometimes you can just write someone an email or text someone. Yeah, it's always good fun.
And soon people are going to be texting you and asking you for how do you do that Ableton thing again?
Yeah, that would be cool. I will have arrived at like a certain rank on the food chain. That would be awesome.
Cool.
Well,
I'm really up to help anyone who has any questions, because like learning TouchDesign has been really a good experience for me, because people are so willing to help. People are so generous with the components they build, with their ideas. I mean, I couldn't have expected to have this kind of interaction with like someone building Photoshop. So this is awesome. Yeah. So.
And not to pressure you when we have you here live on a live stream, but are there any schools or universities that you could do a workshop at, for example, or are there community centers like art cooperatives, or like say the school you went to, could you go there and do a TouchDesigner workshop? Like nothing major, just.
I think I could definitely do that. The issue I think for me always comes around explaining to people what it is TouchDesigner is or whatever. But I could definitely do that, because it seems for me it really opened up like a new avenue to creating just art and to science for me. So I think for very many other people it could really give them like a new perspective on life and creation. So yeah, that would be really cool.
That would be great. I mean, no rush, but an idea. I just had an idea, which is maybe we should start a new forum post. What is TouchDesigner? And then people can go there and write what they think TouchDesigner is and does, right? And then we'd have this whole anthology of what is TouchDesigner. Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of I looked through VVV's website once, and it's just a constant stream of people just. It's almost like a comedy. They're just talking about, oh, this is what VVV is. No, it's this. No, it's this. No, it's that. That is kind of like that. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Very well relatable. Yeah. Well, that makes it also exciting, because you don't. I mean, if it just if the only thing it could do is make toast, then that would be very limiting. But since it's a whole kitchen,
is like VVV.
I think for me, what that has done for me specifically, not having a clear definition is kind of it's a strength, because I never felt the pressure to be like anyone else who was using it. You know, I could look at one person's idea and cross-pollinate it with someone else's idea, and I didn't have to feel like, oh, maybe I haven't done the subsurface scattering correctly, or like this. I mean, there is a place for that, but this really allowed me to just, calm down and just explore. And I think that's what that design is really good.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's a very good definition.
Derivative is not a bad word in our world, so.
Definitely not. So, guys, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yep.
Oh, we've done someone from the campsite next door is mentioning announcements, but we already did announcements. Announcements being 2 more days to apply to compete at the next Interactive and Immersive HQ Championship, which is happening July 21st, 22nd. Sorry, August 21st, 22nd. And tomorrow, Music Hackspace has a meetup. It's free, and there's lots of posts on our social media. I think there's if you scroll on our Facebook page. Anyway, there's a link.
I posted the links in the chat. Yeah. So, also, maybe one thing to mention: there might be a slight pause with InSession, but when we come back, we'll have a very interesting A little bit different, but a very interesting in session coming up for the next one. So don't be alerted that we won't be here next month, but we'll see you soon after. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody. This was fun.
Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Noel, for joining us. And see you next time. Happy summer in the meantime.
Exactly. Yeah. Happy summer to everybody.
Yay.
All right.
Right.